Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be discussing a case that has not been solved in 50 years, and that is the case of the Bricca family, and it is one of the most disturbing crimes ever committed in the tri-state.
The Bricca murders still spawn rumors and haunt the West Side. Now, a new book aims to clear the air about what happened.
And who might have been responsible for the brutal crime at this home in 1966.
But first, let's talk about the Bricca family and how they met. So Gerald, mainly known as Jerry, married Linda in Seattle in the year 1961, where she used to work as a flight attendant. The following year, on June 6th, Linda gave birth to their only child, and that was Debbie. Fast forward, around September 27 of 1966, the neighbors started noticing things out of the ordinary, like the trash cans. One of the neighbors also threw a newspaper on the porch, but of course somebody came to collect it. They also tried calling, but nothing worked. So around 10:40 p.m., Mayor and another neighbor, whose name was Richard, decided to go inside the Bricca home. So they both walked in the house and everything just seemed normal. Everything was in place, nothing out of the ordinary. So they decided to walk upstairs where the bedrooms were. Once they're upstairs and they walk into the room, that's where they find Jerry and Linda dead, as well as their baby girl. So they proceed to call the police. Now, when the police arrived, there was absolutely no sign of forced entry. The police found some clothes in the dryer and some damp ones. So it appears as if Linda has been folding clothes recently. Also, a knife was missing, but it was never recovered. Upstairs in their bedroom, Jerry had all of his clothes on, except for shoes. Also appeared to have a sock stuffed in his mouth, while Linda had a nightgown. Something interesting was the fact that Jerry's wallet was empty, so a robbery was considered a possible motive for the murders at that point. Now, the rug was vacuumed and removed for analysis, as well as fingerprints, but nothing ever came from it. Now, moving on to the autopsy, the report revealed that the wounds they found in the bodies were not necessarily from a knife, which is very interesting, and the killer had actually raped Linda. Now, the baby, Debbie, was stabbed in such a heartbreaking way that the knife actually went through her little body. Now, there are traces showing that Jerry was restored to buy milk on September 25th. Also, Linda's father spoke to her around 10 p.m. to say that him and his mother were going to leave on vacation. The next morning, they didn't pick up a phone call from Jerry's employer, or they called him to find out why Jerry was not at the airport. Richard's wife, which was one of the guys that actually found the body, she told him that there was actually a suspicious man walking back and forth around the neighborhood on the Thursday before the murders, but she couldn't identify the face. Now, there were several indications that maybe Jerry and Linda Briggs actually knew their killer, just because of the fact that there was no sign of forced entry or a struggle. But the detectives think that another possibility is that the killer gained access through the walkout basement. Now, according to the family, Debbie was a very curious child, so they know that Linda would never leave a knife unattended. She would put it in the drawers or places where she could not reach, which made the police think that maybe the killer actually killed her because the baby recognized him. Something else that is very weird in this case was the fact that the family had two dogs who were known to be very aggressive and bark at strangers, yet there were no sounds at all coming from the house that night. Richard had to be cleared out for the murder, not that he was ever a suspect, but because he was receiving phone calls and prank calls even at his workplace, as well as harassment. Also, at the time of the Bricca murder, there were 7 unsolved murders occurred in the Bricca that had occurred over 10 months in the area, and that includes 56-year-old who was found dead in her apartment building, actually in the basement, another 56-year-old who was found deceased in a city park, and a 58-year-old who was found in her apartment as well. So the police initially was curious to know if the famous strangler had anything to do with the Bricca family, but they also knew that this famous strangler was going for older women. The police did have a person of interest in this case, by the way, and that was Dr. Fred. Now, there was this rumor saying that him and Linda were having an affair while she worked at the animal hospital, and maybe he could have possibly killed her to break things off, but there were rumors saying that Jerry also had a fling. But because of the lack of evidence, his name was not released until years after the murders. But he was actually interviewed twice within the first few days, and one of the interviews was actually recorded on tape. So the next day, Lieutenant Herbert with the Ohio police visited Dr. Fred's wife, who told him her husband was very upset with the interview and directed him to call their attorney for any further questions. When the police actually called their attorney, he had a set of rules before they could talk to his client, and the police did not accept the terms at the time. But a few months later, the police were willing to accept the terms and questioned the doctor again, but the lawyer had declined the interview this time. How convenient. Mind you, a month earlier, his lawyer had received a letter stating that they would accept all the terms, and that was actually including that they would allow his lawyer to be at the time of the interview, like to be present with him. And they even included 7 questions that they wanted to ask him, which were pretty normal questions, like, when did you last see Linda alive? When was the last time you visited the house? For what reason was the last time you visited the house? And if Linda ever discussed any of her personal issues with him, along other things. Which, if you really think of it, they're pretty normal questions, especially if you have nothing to hide, right? But nope, his lawyer just replied saying even though they agreed to his term, he would have to study and consider it. His exact words were, study and consider it, but even then, I would probably not allow it. And the police basically never got answer to those questions. When a reporter asked the police about the case, they replied saying, we're pretty much living with the suspect. Pretty much they were checking on Dr. Fred since the time he leaves the house in the morning until the time he returns for bed, pretty much. But the fact that the police was watching him was actually taking a toll on him. First, he was only having 1 cocktail during his lunch, and then he moved up to actually having 3. But unfortunately, he never got to cooperate with the police, and he actually worked in the same place until his retirement in 1996. But of course, most people still to this day believe that he is pretty much responsible for the murders. It is said that the doctor ended up committing suicide in 2004, but there's a confusion because his wife also committed suicide, and so they don't know if they actually committed suicide together or if he died first, and that part there is still unclear until this day.
She had pretty eyes and she had a beauty pageant smile. She had a way with people.
I think the murder of the child just incensed everybody. Why did they, why, you know, people were thinking this is some kind of robbery gone wrong or some kind, why did they kill the child? The child could identify at least one of the killers. There's no question in my mind. People are just killed sometimes for just the slightest things, you know, disrespect, you know, slights, rumors. Greed.
I think there might have been 2 people because Jerry was muscular, very. I just can't see one person taking them both down.
I really wanted to put all the rumors to bed and get as much factual information out there as I could. But I mean, we're still talking about Jack the Ripper, Lizzie Borden, JFK.
And in Cincinnati, we had the Briccas.
And that is pretty much all the evidence there is in the Bricca's family case. It is such a heartbreaking case, and we all still hope, even to this day, that one day it would be solved.